Listen, things are moving so fast in the machine learning space that we could actually see general artificial intelligence, or at least something that resembles general artificial intelligence, within the next 5 years. Like, I know we've been saying that since the 80s, or certain people have been saying that since the 80s, but maybe it's actually really happening this time. I don't know. If you want to experiment with this, it gets a little tricky. You can use gamer GPUs, but you don't have a lot of VRAM, or you can try to piece other things together. NVIDIA gets all the attention, but AMD is actually catching up fast. But make no mistake, they've always been there in the supercomputer space. I mean, there's a reason that Oak Ridge is using the AMD stack for all of their stuff, but those are the smartest guys in the room, and sometimes it's exhausting being the smartest guys in the room. So what do? Well, the Instinct MI25s are about $100 on eBay because the 1%ers don't want those anymore. They don't want those in the data center. They're busy buying $40,000 GPUs or $25,000 GPUs. Systems like the MI210 I took apart with Gamers Nexus, and we did some builds. Our Super Micro Big Twin system, 6 MI210s in 2U. That is an absolutely ridiculous system. And AMD, for their part, they've partnered with PyTorch. So if you use Python for machine learning or anything like that, you can drop in and you're ready to go. It's a little bit more of an uphill battle getting an Instinct MI25 to work with that setup, but if you're willing to put in the work, $100 for an Instinct MI25, you can flash the VBIOS on it to be a WX9100, and it does actually have a single mini DisplayPort out, which will work with that BIOS. You can almost double the power limit of the card, and as long as you can keep it cool, with whatever madness you happen to be running, it will actually be pretty stable. Now, Gigabuster on our forum is the one that put this together and figured it out, and the dependencies and all of the software. See, the MI25s are so old, they're right on the edge of software support. And AMD has been adding new software and new features and new everything for their Instinct line for, like the MI100 and the MI200. And now the MI300, we're on the precipice of that, and so those are the cards that are getting the most attention. The MI25 is based around the Vega 10, so that's GCN 5.0, but it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. 16 gigabytes of VRAM? Yes. The memory bandwidth is 462 gigabytes per second. You can do a lot with that with machine learning, even though 16 gigabytes, I mean, some of these models take like 40 gigabytes of VRAM, but you can still do a lot. Stable diffusion, automatic 111 running in your local browser doing your own stuff. You can get a bunch of previews. I mean, it takes like 20 minutes to get 16 previews at very high fidelity 768. I'll show you. It's worth it, I promise. Now, the MI25 has dual 8-pin power connectors, and it is fortunately a standard GPU style connector. Sometimes the CPU 8-pin and the GPU 8-pin, the enterprise cards a lot of the time will have a CPU style 8-pin connector, which is a different wiring than a GPU style 8-pin connector. But these two have the GPU style 8-pin connector, so it's pretty easy to hook up in an existing system. The biggest problem is cooling. So we got the NZXT bracket here that we've modified a little bit. Getting the GPU mounting pressure just right when you do this is a little tricky. Definitely not recommended, not for the faint of heart, and probably not your first project in an ideal world. The more accessible solution is to download this 3D printable shroud and bum somebody's 3D printer if you don't have one. It'll mount here on the end of your card, and then you can pick up a standard, this is a BFB 1012H brushless blower motor that's 3-pin, so it's wired for your motherboard, and then boom, look at that. Now, this is the longest GPU ever, but this will work in cases such as the Fractal Meshify, the big one. And as long as this fan is running at full tilt, you can run 170 watts through this card without too much issue. Now, Stable Diffusion is a lot of fun, and you can run 768 by 768 models with this. It's actually surprisingly competent. So at floating point 32, 512 by 512 with the Euler 20-step, it's about it's 2.56 to 2.57 iterations per second. At 768 by 768, it's more like 27 seconds, so not bad, but it is only using 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so you're staying well under the 16 gigabyte limit. For comparison, for how far we've come, that Super Micro Big Twin system, if you didn't see those videos, be sure to check out those videos. Floating point 32, 20-step, 2 seconds for 512 by 512, and 6 seconds for 768 by 768. That's pretty fast. And so once you follow the guide and get everything up and running, it works really well. Now if you're using newer hardware, you don't really have to worry about the versions as much. Again, because AMD is supporting the PyTorch Foundation, and because they're supporting AI in general, and because you know, it's AMD's coming. We did this fun clip of The Shining for a video that we released on Halloween last year, and it's even more like that today. I've got this thing running, generating, you know, fun, interesting Danny DeVito images, because if you've watched level 1 for a long time, you know, our benchmark for AI is when we get to an AI agent that's just, here is the Lord of the Rings movies from Peter Jackson. I would like for you to replace every character in this movie with Danny DeVito. And we're basically at the point where AI can do that. A lot sooner than I expected, so that's why I say artificial general intelligence probably coming a lot sooner than I expected, and probably on the order of 5 years or so, or at least you can have a personal assistant that is indistinguishable from general artificial intelligence. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see. Because you can do this on an MI25, it's the software that's catching up. The hardware that we have today is what's going to run that. That's probably why people are buying these GPUs for $25,000, $35,000, $45,000, even on eBay. Well, the newer ones, not the MI25s. These are, you know, $100. Oh, actually, this is the Radeon Pro V540. Amazon is getting rid of these right now. This is not the kind of GPU that you will want to do this stuff on, but this is a dual GPU solution. Amazon used to have these. You can get your hands on these as well. This is going to be a different video though. These are maybe not for machine learning, and it's a little tricky to get the drivers for that if you can help with the Windows drivers for this, because they're in the Amazon cloud and that's pretty much it. They're not on the AMD website, because this is a, you know, V540, which is a dual version of another AMD GPU, so it's a little weird, but maybe is a good candidate for our VFIO GPU pass-through stuff, which by the way is making a lot of progress. Gonna look out for a video on that soon. Yeah, the Instinct MI25 for $100 that you're able to do this at a reasonable speed, genuinely very impressive. And yeah, you can do it on a gamer GPU, but 16 gigabytes of HBM2 for $100, again, that's a really good deal. I don't know that I would pay a lot more than $100 because you will put in a lot of work in order to get it actually working and follow the level 1 guide. Again, thanks Gigabuster. But yeah, you can build kind of a beastly machine, assuming that you can keep them cool. Stable Diffusion on AMD hardware, both old and new. It's basically ready. It's shockingly good. And as a preview for what's next, I've also written a little guide on getting Open Assistant working with one of their open source models. Yeah, there's a model that's really good, but it's sort of encumbered by some licensing issues for commercial and other use. But they do have fully open models. And so you can download one of the 12 billion parameter models there and be able to run it, but you will need a beefy GPU. It out of memories, even with 16 gig VRAM GPUs. And AMD is working on proper ROCm support for 7000 series GPUs and beyond, so 20 gigs, 24 gigs, but just understand that AMD has their CDNA and their RDNA, and those are separate lines. These are CDNA cards, compute DNA, and that's what they still have in the data center. That's what our MI210 is, that's what the MI300s are, and eventually those roads may come back together, but fundamentally your CDNA and your gaming cards are different things, and so it's there for experimentation, but it's a little different. So this has been a fun project. I mean, where else can you play with the angle grinder and 3D printed parts and also machine learning toward our ultimate goal of being able to just ask an AI agent to substitute in your favorite actors and characters into whatever movie and genre you want to create any kind of mashup or meme that you want, much to the horror of literally everybody that's not a normal human being. I'm one of those level 1. This has been some fun with the AMD Instinct MI25, and to show that, you know, if you're just going to run PyTorch, you're basically good to go on an AMD CDNA cards at this point, and it's very good. There's a reason that Oak Ridge is using this. I'm one of those level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the level 1 forums.